Hey everybody, Joshua the window cleaner here, and today I'm going to teach you how to rescreen a screen. I'm going to try to make this video as quick as possible. My other video that's teaching you how to rescreen a screen is more about how to build a window screen. So today I'm just going to jump right into it and show you how to rescreen a screen and the tips and tricks that I've learned over the past almost 10 years. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually take my screen and I want to bow out the frame. So I'll take it, and I have this little edge here. It's about 1 inch high. And so I put a little bit of pressure and I go all the way down the screen. And I do that on every side. You don't have to push in way too much. You just want it bowed out a little bit, because whenever you go to screen it, the frame is naturally going to try to pull in. So if you do this part right, whenever you go to screen it, your screen should be perfectly straight. So the next most important thing is what size spline goes with your screen. So if you already had a window screen and you're just rescreening it, your spline, which is this rubber gasket that goes in the groove of the screen, the window screen, or even the door screen, if you already have that, then you're in good shape. Now, if you bought new frame, you need to ask the manufacturer or whoever you bought it from, what is the recommended size for the spline? For example, for ours, it's 0.195, but I found that 0.185 actually works better in the channel itself. So that is the most important thing, because it will make it very hard to screen if you have old, dingy spline or you have the wrong size spline. So you can always match it up. You can take your old spline, go down to wherever you bought your materials from, and just match it up and make sure that it's the right thickness. It doesn't matter if it has grooves on it or not. If you have one at home, sometimes they don't have any grooves. The ones that have grooves, like this one, are actually way better. So that's the first thing you want to make sure to do, is that you have the right size spline. Now the next thing you want to make sure of is that you have the right size roller. So there's all these different kinds of rollers, ones that are really thin, ones that are a little bit thicker, and the ones that are really thick. So depending on what size spline is what size roller that you want to use. If the spline is really thin, you want to use a really thin one. If the spline is really thick, you're going to want to use a really thick one. If the spline is somewhere in the middle, then you're pretty good with using one that's in the middle, like this one. This is the one that I use typically for most splines. So we sell these if you need to buy them. They're roughly around $85, then plus shipping wherever you're at. But you can also buy them from the hardware store too. But that's gonna be key to screening your screen the proper way and to make it easier for yourself. You might find that this has been a challenge for you. This is gonna help. Now, once you've done that, most screens like this have pull tabs, and you wanna look at your work order form, what your customer wants, or you can pick and choose. I have made a pin that has notches on it so that I make sure to put them in the right spot. So I'll line that line up, put my pull tab in here, put my pull tab in here. So I know that they match the same way. And we use metal pull tabs for our new ones. Making sure that you have the right size screen is very important. So I'm using a 30-inch on this one. This will save you money on material, having the right size. When I first started my business, I would just use 36 because I could cover most screens with 36-inch. But what I found was I was spending a lot of money on the 36-inch when really I just needed the 30 most of the time. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure that these squares line up properly whenever you put your screen. Make sure that your frame matches the edge of the screen itself. This is going to help to make sure whenever you put the spline in there, your screen stays straight and it's not going to pull over too much or all of those things. I typically like to start with my spline on this side, pull tabs on that side. That way I can run my spline through this channel, run it this way. And then when it starts to pull, your pull tabs are over there, and then you come back this way. That's the way I like to run my spline, because if for some reason it's too tight or not tight enough, all I have to do is pull this spline up and then start back here and go back, and maybe I have to give it a little bit more leverage here. Okay, so I'm gonna start my spline right here, push it in this corner, And then now I'm going to put my fingers here and try to keep this screen straight, but I'm also giving it a little bit of pull right up in here too with my fingers. So I'm using this finger to create a little slack right here. Using this part of my hand, my thumb is gonna be running on the spline right over that finger, and then I'm just gonna be coming through here just like this. And then running my spline roller in there. And you see I'm keeping that screen straight. Just like so. And then when I get about halfway, I need to create a little bit more space so that it doesn't pull in too much and have an hourglass effect. So now you see me, I'm running my spline right here, and I'm putting my finger, my thumb right here on the inside, creating a little bit more slack right before that spline is in the groove. And then I'll bring my thumb back up for the edge here, because as you see, the frame actually bows out a little bit. So I'm creating that. Now on that side, I'm not so much worried about it pulling in. So then right here, I'm pushing in with the spline, and I'm being consistent with my pressure. This is very, very important that that spline sits all the way down in the bottom of the channel. So I'm pushing down as hard as I can and doing the same thing I just did over there. So even if I go back and forth, it's still that consistent, that very consistent. Even if I do that, I'm consistent with my pressure. I'm making sure that this is seated at the bottom of the channel, the spline. Okay, so now I gotta go past this pull tab right here. Again, I'm constantly straightening out this screen, because what's happening now, there's a little bit of this is a little loose right here in this area. So I might need to pull my screen a little tighter, but you don't really have to if you do this part right, because you're pulling it tight with your hand. And then you got to get past this pull tab. All right, now you're doing the bottom part, and again this part too, to get it started, just to create a little bit of slack in here. Because when you put that spline in there, the screen's gonna pull tight by itself. So you don't have to tighten it yourself always whenever you do a screen. So I'm gonna pull this out a little bit because there was a little bit too much slack. So now I will tighten it, but you can still see there's a little bit of slack right there. And then push it all the way on, and that's good. All right, so now it's the cutting out process. We wanna cut the spline right here on this edge, push it down. I like using these blades. You can get them from Ace Hardware, because I can push down with this edge, and then I can also trim out and just break away the blade whenever the blade gets dull. And these are like 70 cents, and they go a long way. So whenever you're cutting, you want to go right down there and almost drawing a line on that spline. That way you don't have any little pieces of screen sticking out on this side of the spline. I normally like to cut it off the roll first. All right, so then I'll start on this edge over here and draw that line just like I was talking about. And I'm using this hand to pull the screen. I'm pulling the screen, pulling it away. That helps cut it, because it's almost like you're pulling it apart as you're cutting it, and the blade gets in there a little bit better. And I'm gonna show you how to work this edge. So I've pulled the slack, what I just cut, and I'm actually gonna fold over this screen that way. This is how you get in that corner, because a lot of times you won't be able to get in that corner. If it's like this, you're like, how do I get in that corner? So if you just fold it over like so, when you go to cut it, boom, look at that, beautiful. Same thing here, I'm gonna start over here, start pulling it apart, okay? And then here's that fold again. I'm gonna fold it like so, and then boom. See how I cut it? Perfectly. So you just fold it over and then cut. All right, and then this edge again. And if the spline is ever sticking up like this and it's poking up, go ahead and push that spline down so you don't risk cutting the frame, because you'll do this and you'll be drawing that line where that spline is, and the spline is lifted up, when you go to do that, you're gonna slice this or slice your finger or something like that. You wanna be down in that channel. And if the spline, even right here, the spline is sticking up because of this pull tab. So push it down as much as you can, and then just be careful. So instead of being right here, you might have to go like this a little bit more. You see? And then turn it again whenever you get right here in the spline. You're drawing that line. All right, so now you see that that's perfectly straight right there. It's not hourglassed in, it's perfectly tight, and this screen is good to go. You can see that the spline is not rippled all the way down. It's perfectly seated in that channel. That's important, because if you don't, the screen's gonna be all ripply. And that's how you screen a screen. So hopefully this was helpful. I always try to go into as much detail as possible because these videos are training videos for my employees. So this helps them become better at what they do and grow with my company. So I really appreciate y'all watching the video up to this point. If you could just like and subscribe, give it a thumbs up, comment if you have any questions whatsoever. And I'm gonna be making more of these videos. Again, these are gonna be training videos for my newer employees. So I hope y'all enjoy the video. Y'all have a blessed day. Peace out.